This interview of our Today's Campus Innovation Interview Series is brought to you by Six Sigma Management Institute. Visit sixsigmamindpro.com to learn more about MindPro, the online Lean Six Sigma training system developed by the co-creator of Six Sigma, Dr. Michael J. Harry. So welcome everybody in the new year, a new interview, and I'm very happy to be joined by the co-founder and president of LeanPath, Andrew Shakman. So welcome to our today's Campus Innovation Interview Series.
Thank you for having me.
So I believe that health education, may it be like personal health, which is of course closely connected to food waste, the cost involved is going to be one of probably the big topics in education this year, so 2013. And who better to ask or interview than somebody who has been with his company in the business for a very long time. I think you founded LeanPath in 2004 already. What was the motivation back then to do something in the food space, but already focusing on sort of green topics that were maybe not the most popular back then?
Yes. I think there are two different ways that businesses get started. Sometimes there's an idea that drives a business, and sometimes there's a team that drives a business. In our case, we had a team, and we were really interested in solving a problem that was an important problem to solve, and one where we felt that our talents could make a leveraged impact. But we weren't quite sure where we were going to start. And we knew it also had to work from a financial point of view. So we began really as a business, and we became a green business as we proceeded. So initially, we had experience working with food companies. We had experience working with technology. And in the course of finding that point of leverage, we learned that food waste was a really significant problem. And we also learned that people had attempted to work on that problem in a number of ways, most of them manual. Chefs intervening to solve the problem. But there had been, at least in one instance, some attempt to use deli scales to record information. And we said, that's interesting, but we think there's more to this equation, and we think our team is capable of working on that and solving the problem. So we began, and along the way we encountered a number of things. First, we brought elements of process improvement into the mix. So Six Sigma and Lean process improvement principles started to be wed into what we were doing. We began to look at the environmental impact of food waste. And for me, it was a huge moment, and it was so energizing because it had been really important to me that the impact we were making was, yes, it was useful and value creating for customers, but also it was something that was bigger than us and that we could get up every day and come to work knowing that what we were doing mattered. And so when we started looking at the greenhouse gas emissions from food waste, and we started looking at the related issues of food insecurity and hunger and the challenges that are inherent in the food system, given all of the petroleum-based inputs that go into that system, whether it's fertilizers or pesticides or herbicides, we just looked at this and said, gosh, this just seems like something that needs to get fixed. And so we're going to work on it. And so we began, and of course, as you might imagine, this wasn't an entirely linear path. You learn as you go. But we started working on the problem first by prototyping, and then creating a second generation pretty quickly, because the first generation we decided was really not effective. And then we've been just refining ever since, and incorporating even, I think, general principles of behavioral science in what we do, and thinking of ourselves less and less as a technology company and more as change makers, as people who focus culture and focus behavior.
And I think more and more people are aware of it, but also when somebody visits your website, you immediately get aware or learn that food waste is, of course, not only a problem in, the United States or even in our sort of market of higher education, but is a global problem. And, as your product, or products, I have to say, are today you basically say that you provide an automated food waste prevention tracking system. So can you tell us a little bit more, how do you help people, some institutions in higher education already, how do you help them with their food waste, or also how do you help them with their food purchases and save money?
We focus on pre-consumer food waste, which would be overproduced items, things which are spoiled, expired items, trim waste from fresh produce and meat, as well as things that have been dropped, burned, contaminated. And we focus on that because those items are the ones that are the most within the control of the food service staff within a college or university dining services organization. We, of course, are also concerned about post-consumer waste, which would be what's left on students' plates or guests' plates after the meal service. But we've chosen to create a product that was initially focused on pre-consumer. It does have some post-consumer elements as well, but let me walk you through it. So we start working on food waste with the premise that the very best thing that we can do is to source reduce it, which means prevent it and minimize it and not have it. Of course, we're huge fans of food donation, food rescue, as well as composting and even extracting energy from food waste. But those are secondary, tertiary items on the hierarchy. The most important thing is prevention and minimization. And so that's where LeanPath works. And the way we focus on prevention is that we focus on data. And we've learned that if you want to prevent something, you've got to have information about it, because you've got to know your baseline. You've got to know how you're doing today versus where you were yesterday or last week or last year, which is your baseline. Without that baseline, you don't know anything about prevention. And so in this way, it's very different than some other things that colleges and universities do about food waste, because prevention can't be, it's the absence of something that we have to understand rather than the presence of it. So we bring tracking systems into food service operations, which are used to measure food waste and establish baselines. But they're used for more than that. They're also used to diagnose what's going in the garbage, characterize that waste stream, and not just do it once, like a snapshot, but do it every single day. In the same way a retail operation will count its cash every day and reconcile it, we believe it's essential also to count and record waste every day, because waste is money, and every day things are different. Your staff is different, the weather is different, the menu is different, management may be different, priorities may change. So in the same way we have to measure sanitation, or manage sanitation or safety or customer service, we have to manage food waste every day. And so the mechanism for doing that is creating a continuous measurement process. So LeanPath's tools are designed to make that easy. And the way we do it is we provide systems called LeanPath trackers, which are touchscreen terminals connected to scales, which we put into food service operations, typically near the pot wash area where pots and pans are being cleaned out and washed and sanitized, and in many cases the food waste is going into compost at that point. So we place these items right there so that before that item is scraped out of a pan, the pan is very quickly set onto our scale, and the food service employee who's throwing it away quickly enters a couple of pieces of information into this touchscreen interface. And that usually involves their name, what they're throwing away, why they're throwing it away, and what kind of container it's in, so that we can automate the process of deducting the tare weight of the container. And what that gives us is a lot. Date, time, what's being thrown away, why, a net weight, which allows us to calculate a value. And all of that we capture in 10 or 15 seconds. It's very, very fast for most employees to do this. No one's adding labor to do it. It's just part of moving that product to the compost or warewashing area and quickly intercepting that information. Now, once we get that information, we then transfer it into a piece of software that allows us to see the trends. First and foremost, we can see how we're doing overall versus our baseline, but then we can drill in and we have reporting that shows us our trends over time, specific foods, which foods are we wasting the most, why are we wasting foods, what are the most common reasons, where are we wasting the most foods, because we know which station the food came from, and in some cases our clients will actually track within an operation. So for example, a residential dining operation, they might track where within that facility the food waste is coming from. Is it the deli? Is it the grill? Is it the salad bar? Is it the beverage station, the dessert station? And so by knowing that, we have the ability to drill in. And of course, with the magic of a database, you have the ability to slice and dice. So then we can start asking really interesting questions like, of all the food that we overproduced today at the grill, which food did we overproduce the most? And that diagnostic information has not been available in the past, except to the most diligent dining services manager who's willing to do all of this by hand on paper and type it into Excel and try to figure it out. And there's just no way to make it a continuous, ongoing part of the process. So that's what we do. Now, the other thing that we do is we provide training and coaching. So we think it's very important that people not just collect this data, but that they use it. And so the way we recommend that they use it is by setting up a group called a Stop Waste Action Team, or a SWAT team. And this is a group typically of 3 or 4 employees. There's someone that we call the champion who leads that group. And that is the person on site who's responsible for driving this program. Usually it's a chef or a sous chef. So they get together with the SWAT team and they look at the data once a week. They have a 2 to 3 minute meeting standing up in the kitchen, so it's very fast. And they look at which foods they're wasting the most that week. And then they pick one of them to focus on. And this is critical. We don't focus on everything at once. We pick one item, we drill into it, we get everybody on the team talking about it and thinking about it, and inevitably, when you spend a week or 2 talking about and working on one goal, you're able to drive that down. So you find you have too much soup, you get everyone talking about it, people come up with ideas, what we can do to have waste less soup, you test them, and it leads to waste reduction.
So Andrew, You basically said that you have the 2 components, the very important key component of data in which you can go very granular in the system, and then sort of the more live or personal component of coaching and motivation of employees. And I mean, I saw that you're already working with the universities of North Dakota, Massachusetts, and Michigan Tech. What is generally the awareness in higher education when it comes to such a program of food waste in general? Is the awareness there? Do they have to be, don't know, coached or trained on the importance of the topic? What's it generally like when you try to partner with somebody or get in touch with a new university or institution?
So in addition to providing software and hardware and coaching, as you noted, we are also focused on making sure that that there is a culture change in the food service operation. And so the very act of recording data is unto itself going to change culture and behavior. And so in that sense, we're very interested in behavioral science. We're very interested in how we can create feedback loops that bring data back to frontline employees so that they can see exactly what the value of an item is when they throw it away. You'd be amazed at the reaction that people have with eyes popping open and going, I had no idea that I'm throwing away every day something that's worth as much as I get paid for the hour I'm throwing it away in. And so it's very eye-opening. And so in addition to the data, it's that behavior change and focus of attention on food waste that we're looking to create every day and in a very personal way so that it's not just some general thing. And it's also got to be positive. And everything we do at LeanPath is about team members being empowered to own this solution and being part of the solution. So it's not just a situation where this is some sort of monitoring by management. This is about the team members monitoring what's going on themselves so that they can make change and make a difference in the world. So we're excited about that. To your question about the degree of readiness in the college and university world, we see that college and university food service professionals, dining services managers and leaders are very, very attentive to sustainability. And that has been the case for a number of years. And it's not surprising because food is one of those areas where we get to make a choice every day in what we're going to eat and whether or not that is a choice that is better for our environment and our society or not. And so students have been raising these questions with dining services managers who themselves are very interested in the topic and responsive to it. So you've seen a lot of local sourcing, you've seen interest in fair trade products, you've seen interest in responsible seafood, you've seen all kinds of, there's many initiatives around the product that we bring in and how we bring it in. And on waste, you've seen a lot of attention around first biodiesel from yellow grease and then composting. And what we found is that people started doing that because they realized all this food can't go to landfill. And we as a college or university often have the ability to compost it because we may have space, we may have technical assistance available to us from a department of the university, or it just may be a high enough priority that we're going to do it commercially. But then they get into that and they realize, wow, what are we doing to prevent? Because if we've got all this compost, that really is not where the end result we want. And I make the point to people often that you've got to be careful not to quit composting. And if you come into an operation, just imagine if you were to come into a kitchen and find a giant leak, water gushing out of a wall, what's the first thing that someone would do? Well, you'd obviously turn it off, and then you'd get out a bucket and a mop and clean it up. But if all we're doing is composting or donating food waste and not dealing with the source of the problem, we're missing it. So overall, I would say that there is an awakening happening in colleges and universities around the importance of source reduction. And so they are interested in what we're doing with LeanPath on the pre-consumer side. And you've also seen very good efforts on the post-consumer side with trayless dining. And you've got many dining services now no longer offering trays in their all-you-care-to-eat operations because they found that students were taking more food than they actually had the ability to eat. And they were just making an error in selecting that food. So now they can only select what they can carry, and then if they want to go back for more, they're welcome to. But it cuts down on food waste dramatically. And we've seen studies that, or in fact just recently a study that came out of American University that validated that. We've also seen studies out of Kansas State on what happens when you put messages about food waste in front of students and reminding them that food is valuable. And we find that just the process of studying that question, including putting up some signage and the like, can cut post-consumer waste by 15%.
Of course, if we look at today's educational landscape, the factor of cost is not the, let's say, least important to, well, many colleges and universities. And also in that respect, you can share some pretty impressive numbers, I think, because for some people or institutions, you save them 1% of their annual spendings, or even up to 4%, which is, as I said, quite an impressive figure, I think.
Yes, they can save 2, 3, 4% on purchases, and in many cases more. And we like to set expectations a little bit lower, but we certainly have folks who are doing better than that. And what's great about that is that those dollars are now not in the garbage, and then you have a choice about what you do with them. And it might be that you say, okay, we need those savings, and we're going to put them in the bank. But in many cases, it might be that you want to spend that on sustainable seafood or locally grown produce, something that might be more expensive that you wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. So what we have to look at here is it's a resource, and saving food waste or reducing food waste produces that resource. How we use it is a choice.
Now, as LeanPath, I think you maintain a very sort of active connection, or trying to build relationships with your customers, or also people generally interested. If you would like to, I saw that you regularly hold or conduct webinars, and you interact with your audience. Do you have something coming up soon, or how can people learn more about what you do, also the mission you definitely seem to be on, and how can people get in touch with you best?
So we recommend that people visit our website, LeanPath.com, which has a bunch of free tools about food waste, including a short guide to food waste management, some information on food waste auditing, a great blog that's several years old, full of, over that entire period, we've been adding tips and ideas, and so it's got a lot of information in it to be mined with just insights around food waste. So those are some good ways to learn about both LeanPath as well as the Food Waste Challenge. We also would always recommend the EPA, at least if you're in the U.S., has some great food waste resources at epa.gov/foodscraps. There's a phenomenal blog that Jonathan Bloom maintains called Wasted Food, and it's at wastedfood.com. So those are some resources that we would recommend people look at to learn more about the Food Waste Challenge, and specifically come to LeanPath to learn about what we're doing. And we do a lot of webinars and a lot of public speaking, and part of the reason we do that is because when we began this, people didn't understand why food waste mattered, and they didn't understand why source reduction was the most important thing in tackling food waste. And so we found that we had a role to play, an educational role and a consulting role in helping people to understand this. And so that has become one of truly the most enjoyable parts of my job, is that I get to go out and talk to people not about selling our products, but thinking about this problem in an organized way, in a strategic way, and sharing with them the optimism born from a great deal of experience that they can make change, that this is something that people can do something about. We simply need to focus on it, and it's not hard. So we enjoy raising the attention, and we're really thrilled that this is now an issue that's getting much more focus, not just in college and university, but generally. We have the UN now with a global initiative on food waste. We have the incoming president of China talking about it, perhaps the first head of state to make this a priority. So these things are in the air, and I believe that when we look back a decade from now, we will see this moment as a moment in time where we finally mustered the collective will to make change.
Great. So I have to thank you actually very much for taking the time and coming on the program today to speak about this indeed very important issue of food waste, and educating us more on the topic. And I think with LeanPath you are doing a very good job in making people more aware of it, and for yourself also building a business. So thank you very much.